welcome to Gaming Instincts TV. Today I would like to bring a very special video to our subscribers, and of course to people who are dying for some exciting Xbox news, and want to hear what is the future of Microsoft is looking like for the next 18 months. The time has officially come, and this is where we will be having a nice and detailed conversation about many unannounced first-party projects, and of course games that we know of as well. Before I continue this in-depth discussion on what we know of Microsoft and what we don't, I'd like to make two very important statements to our community and to those who are listening and watching us for the very first time as well. First and foremost, as the owner of this website and this YouTube channel, I want to give a huge thanks to Microsoft for inviting me personally to their E3 2018 Xbox media briefing. I will be attending there in person and getting my hands on unannounced titles, interview developers and publishers as well at the Microsoft Theater. Don't worry, our team here at Gaming Instincts will make sure you get the latest scoop, details, preview impressions and interviews here at GamingInstincts.com, and of course the YouTube channel itself, so get excited and stay tuned. Speaking of our team here at Gaming Instincts, I want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart, including Luke Kenny, Justin Howard, Adam Ben Mosa, Lucian Davidson, and Luz Walbuena. If it wasn't for these guys, we wouldn't be where we are today either. Great job everyone, you guys create fantastic content, are creative, and have delivered everything on timely manner, and keep our audience engaged. The second statement I'd like to make before we even have this discussion is something about sources of information in video game journalism. What I'm about to discuss with you is not 100% factual evidence, but has a very high probability of actually happening. The reason why I say that is because I'm very confident in my sources. Now, as far as the actual sources go themselves, that is not something I'm willing to discuss with you or the general public. It is my right to keep these things confidential. However, I am willing to share what I know, what I've been told, and what I heard in the conversations that I've had. As far as with who, or where, or what, I cannot. The rule of video game journalism is that you never ever put the people or your sources in jeopardy. This is just how this kind of stuff rolls, and you have to accept and go with it. Yes, I know there will be plenty of people who want to call me a liar, an attention whore, or whatever other creative name you guys can come up with, and that is completely fine with me. I accept the internet the way it is and the trolling that comes with it, but it does not affect me, and nor it ever will. Does that mean that everything I tell you from this point on is 100% to be believed? No, absolutely not. You take the information for what it is, think about it, and make a choice whether it sounds something that you want to believe or not. You want to take these types of things with a grain of salt. Don't take everything to heart that I say, and save yourself from being disappointed in the first place. Without further ado, let's begin. As of today, I'm aware that there are currently 16 titles that are in development from a combination of different studios, including Sumo Digital, Relic, Moon Studio, Playground Games, Turn 10, 343 Industries, Splash Damage, The Coalition, Electric Square, Studio Gobbo, Rare, and a couple of other studios that are currently either being built from the ground up or spoken with for marketing and timed exclusivity deals. I unfortunately do not have their names as of today, so with that being said, here's the current list of the games that we know are in the pipeline. Mainly these are first-party titles that are being published by Microsoft. I am pretty positive that there are also third-party games that we are unaware of, but we will not be covering those for the day. Crackdown 3 by Sumo Digital, Age of Empires 4 by Relic, Ori and the Will of the Wisps by Moon Studios, unannounced Forza Horizon 4 by Playground Games, unannounced Forza Motorsport 8 by Turn 10, unannounced Halo Project by 343 Industries, unannounced Gears of War Project by Splash Damage, unannounced Gears of War Project number 2 by The Coalition, unannounced Fable Project by Playground Games, unannounced Perfect Dark Project by Sumo Digital with the help of The Coalition, unannounced action-adventure game from Electric Square, which happens to be a sister studio of Studio Gobbo, unannounced Toy to Life Project by Studio Gobbo, unannounced Free-to-Play Project by Studio Gobbo, a new IP being made by a smaller team at Rare number 1, and another new IP being made by a smaller team at Rare number 2. And of course, the rest of the folks are working on Sea of Thieves content. And a new mech game by a studio that we do not know of yet. Okay, so there's our current list. What we're going to do is basically talk about each game, what details I know about the specific project, who's settling the development, when we will first hear about it, and a possible release window. But before we get to those games, I'd like to cover one particular title that is not listed in that list, even though I actually did see something about it, and I did talk to a few people also. And the only reason why I want to do it is because it's a rumor that always comes up every year before E3 starts. And I just want to get it out of the way and put it to rest and give you guys a real answer on what's actually happening. And that game happens to be no other than Banjo-Kazooie. Let's get into the nitty-gritty details. So there are a few people I've been talking to who managed to find some information in regards to something called Banjo 20A on the Xbox Live API SDK Content ID. What is Content ID and what does API and SDK stand for? Xbox Live API SDK means Xbox Live Application Programming Interface, which is the API, and Software Development Kit is the SDK. Anything related to the API is usually coding related, and is accessed via a website using a very secure login, and is usually reserved for developers who want to put their software on the Xbox Live market, and so on and so forth. and involves a lot of coding as I previously mentioned. I'm far from a coder, but a content ID is basically a file name or a tag that specifies that something exists in the system. Who has access to Xbox Live IP SDK? You guessed it, the developers, as I previously said. And usually when a product is in the making, the developer is required to put the tag in the system. It could also just be a DLC, an in-game event, or simply a cosmetic item for a game, or whatever else. Basically, it's just like I said, an existence of some sort of content. And it needs to have an ID, that's why it's called Content ID. And yes, it could be a full-fledged release or a title of a software as well. At first it was speculated that it's a remake that's similar to how Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy was handled, along with the upcoming Spyro remake that will be available on September 21st of this year, but for the first two Banjo games. As far as the idea itself goes, it does not seem to be that far-fetched. Fans have been begging and asking for some sort of a Banjo return for a long time. Obviously, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts proved that it wasn't the game that the fans wanted, due to its vehicle building mechanics as opposed to focusing on the platforming and exploration elements. Back at E3 2015, I managed to speak to Rare directly and had a good lengthy interview with Nick Byrne. E3 2015 is where Sea of Thieves was first announced, and at the time the game was in its very early stages of development, and they were not allowed to talk much about it other than being able to answer some real basic questions. If you want to listen to this interview yourself, you can find it on our YouTube channel and the archive playlist. I will also leave a link directly to it in the description down below. Since Rare couldn't talk much about the Sea of Thieves in 2015, I decided to turn the interview into more about Rare themselves and what they have become as a company and where they're going forward after the Connect fiasco. I've even particularly asked them questions in regards to their previous IPs and if they will ever return. While I do not remember their answer quote-unquote, I do remember them saying that they're more interested in creating fresh and innovative ideas and seeing what they can come up with, and that a return of any old cast of characters is not really interesting to them anymore, especially in the modern days. It is also worth noting that Rare Replay came out in August of 2015, and was made for the Rare fans who wanted to replay their old games and feel the nostalgia once again. Rare Replay did include all the 3 Banjo games as well, so did they really need to remake a Banjo game in a new engine just for the sake of the crowd? Do I personally want it? Yes, I do. Do I think they need to do it? Absolutely not. They have better things to do. Over the years, Phil Spencer has also stated that Rare Studios is a new IP factory, which means their goal as a company from this point on is to create new games for the Xbox brand. Now obviously, remaking the first 2 original Banjo games is completely counterproductive of that, and it's not really creating a fresh idea. However, it is catering to your fans, I'm not gonna lie. The 2 new IPs that I've previously mentioned in the list back up Phil Spencer's statement when it comes to being Rare a new IP factory. If Rare is making 2 new titles on top of creating Sea of Thieves content, do you really think they would be spending their time on recreating Banjo? I am pretty positive they have a priority list, so no. Unless the remake is being done by a different studio or a really small team at Rare or something like that. Now, what can Banjo 28 actually refer to then, according to the sources? Well, we did some more digging and it seems to make a bit more sense now. The original game was released in June of 1998. Fast forward to 20 years later, we're in the year 2018. Crazy, time flies. Sea of Thieves came out and is officially classified as a GaaS game, which stands for Game as a Service, which means the game will receive constant free updates, balance patches, cosmetics, events, and different types of microtransactions, and so on through its life cycle. As a matter of fact, the first piece of content for Sea of Thieves and a new set of events is about to drop on May 29th, which is called The Hungry Deep, and there's more stuff coming in June, July, August, and so on. It is a very safe bet that Banjo 20th A simply stands for Banjo 20th Anniversary that might be occurring in Sea of Thieves itself, with a Kazooie as a cosmetic pet that follows you around, or acts as a parrot, and there's a good chance of some sort of announcement at the upcoming E3 2018 Xbox media briefing that will take place on June 9th. Rare did confirm they will have companion pets as microtransactions before the game came out. A Banjo figurehead might also be a possible cosmetic item that you can buy for your ship at the shipwright vendor in Sea of Thieves. It is also not far-fetched that some of the characters might make a cameo appearance in other Microsoft services such as the upcoming Xbox Live Avatars update later this year. If you guys have no clue what I'm talking about in regards to the Avatars update, you can check out the trailer link from E3 2017 in the description down below. Yeah, they're still working on it. So what do we make of Banjo 20th Anniversary? Is it an actual game that's being done as a small project by a different team or by a different studio? Or an actual special event for Sea of Thieves just like it's according to the sources? To be completely honest, I would not hope for a new game or anything that's related to a software. My sources say that it's most likely nothing in terms of software due to the simple fact that Rare is now focusing on different things, and that's been very obvious lately, which includes developing the 2 new IPs that I've previously talked about, and creating new content for Sea of Thieves. Leave this one alone, folks, and move on with your lives. If it happens, it happens, but most likely not. And real quick, back to E3 2015 interview, Rare did tell me they have something called an incubation team. What does an incubation team mean? An incubation team is basically when a group of developers get together, they go into a room and they start brainstorming ideas. So pretend like going over to your friend's house and being like, hey dude, you know what, this would be really cool if this game had that and this and that. So it's the same thing, but at a development studio, and they brainstorm all these ideas, and they do prototypes, they test out gameplay loops, and they iterate, and if it works out, it eventually goes into pre-production. The artwork starts going in, the programming goes in, the engine, all that good stuff, the development starts, and then the game is shipped. That's how Rare is working. They have an incubation team, they sit around, they're playing with new different ideas, and if they like something and they greenlight it, they're like, okay, this is a game and we're making it. So that's just a really cool detail. This is how Rare is making their games. Okay, with the Banjo 20th anniversary shenanigans out of the way, let's talk about the really exciting stuff that are actually happening in the somewhat distant future. The next franchise I would like to speak about is Gears of War. Alrighty, let's talk about the next potential Gears of War game and the franchise as a whole. The Coalition is a studio that's responsible for creating the mainline Gears of War titles. Their last game was obviously Gears of War 4, which was the start of a brand new trilogy and the continuation of the saga, similar to how Halo 4 was the start of the new Halo trilogy. Quick little history lesson on the studio before we continue. The Coalition originally was actually called Black Tusk Studio, and they had a stealth/action game in development that was teased at E3 2013, codenamed Shanghai, internally. Microsoft later canned the project, or perhaps put it on hold, and rebranded them as the Coalition, and put them to work on the Gears of War series. So what's happening next for Gears with the Coalition? The next Gears of War mainline game is going to be called Gears of War 5. However, that is not exactly what will be happening next for the Gears of War in terms of releases. Splash Damage, the developer that was originally responsible for the Gears of War Ultimate Edition, have been hiring like crazy for a brand new Gears of War project, while the Coalition is to focus on the next mainline Gears game, along with a little game called Perfect Dark. But we will get to that part in a little bit. Gears of War Ultimate Edition was released on August 25th, 2015. Then right after that, Gears of War 4 came out on October 10th, 2016. The next Gears of War game will be a release from Splash Damage and not the Coalition, because the Coalition stated that they want to make Gears of War 5 significantly different from the previous Gears of War games, and possibly even move the franchise to a new and interesting direction while still retaining the spirit of the Gears of War franchise. So you're probably asking, what the fuck is Splash Damage doing then with Gears of War? The answer is very simple. According to a few sources, it's actually a spin-off that will be used to fill the gap between Gears of War 4 and Gears of War 5. Wait, I know what you're going to say, but the Walmart Canada leaked listing listed Rage 2 and Gears of War 5, and Rage 2 was the real deal. You are correct, Rage 2 was a surprise and a real deal. However, Walmart also listed Forza Horizon 5, which basically means that they cannot count for shit, because 4 is not even out yet, but the listing obviously meant to say 4 instead of 5. They have made mistakes and did the same thing with Gears of War. The thing about online retail listing leaks is that they usually just put very basic placeholder names that will make very logical sense to the customers and themselves, which also ignores the subtitles, and even getting the numbers wrong as well. Does that mean that the Walmart Canada leak is 100% wrong in the Gears of War? Actually no, if anything it's a sign that we will be playing a new Gears of War sometime next year, and it's gonna be a spin-off as well. I know you have one more question, what kind of a spin-off is it? Is it another Judgment game? No, it's far from that, and it's actually quite different from its original roots as well. According to what I've been told, it will be an XCOM-based Gears of War game, a turn-based tactical combat game that's similar to Mario Rabbids Battle Kingdom, but in the Gears of War universe. I know it sounds like we're in a crazy world, right? If someone told me that Mario was gonna have XCOM at some point, I'd call him a crazy fucking delusional psycho too. As a matter of fact, there was a Gears of War tactical game in development in the past, and it played like a hybrid of RTS and XCOM, and it was made for the use of the Kinect, but thankfully it got canned because it looked like and played like complete shit. With Kinect basically out of existence and the power of a new generation hardware, I actually would not mind seeing a full-fledged AAA Gears of War tactical game as a little side bonus to the franchise, assuming that it's done right. So with that being said, will there be some sort of a Gears of War news at E3 2018? Yes, 100% positive that there will be. Expect some sort of a spin-off slated for next year, possibly in spring of 2019, while Gears of War 5 is being cooked in the oven. Time to talk about a little game called Perfect Dark. It's almost time for Joanna Dark to come out of the shadows. Let's discuss the upcoming Perfect Dark game. So as we all know, Perfect Dark is an old classical Rare IP, and I've clearly stated that Rare is not interested in going back to their old IPs, and that's correct. They're not. However, that does not mean that Microsoft cannot take advantage of the intellectual property rights. So here's the deal, guys. Perfect Dark is a reboot of the franchise that's supposedly being developed by Sumo Digital, according to the sources, along with the assistance of the Coalition, which actually makes up for a quite solid team, and it also makes a lot of sense, because both studios have great experiences at creating third-person shooters. Right now, Sumo Digital is hard at work at finishing Crackdown 3. Meanwhile, the Coalition already shipped and delivered Gears of War 4, and are working on the next game in this Gears of War franchise as well, and helping out Sumo Digital on the Perfect Dark game when needed. The new Perfect Dark game will be in third person, and it is being treated as a complete reboot as previously stated. The game is in its early stages of development and probably won't be seeing the light of day until 2020, and there is a very decent chance that this is a launch title for the next generation Xbox system and possibly a cross-gen title as well. Now, fans will probably sound really angry after what I just said and state that Microsoft just usually plays safe with their games. An XCOM Gears of War spin-off and a third-person Perfect Dark game? What the fuck are you talking about, dude? I don't want it. Phil Spencer did say a couple of times that they're very interested in starting to move their known franchises towards new genres and experiment a little bit, and these two games are proof of that. Okay fellas, 2 big games down along with a Banjo rumor, so what we're gonna do is talk about the 2 other big games, and then we will talk about the known games as well. So let's go back to Albion and see what's going on with our good and evil heroes in the Fable series. So what's going on in the beautiful world of Albion? Well, the rumors of a new Fable game have been around for a while, and it's not a secret anymore that a new game is in development in Playground Studio, which is the same developer that has brought you the much beloved Forza Horizon series. First question that comes to mind is why are racing game developers jumping on and creating full-on action RPG? Answer is very simple. Same reason as to why Guerrilla Games went from Killzone to Horizon Zero Dawn. There is absolutely nothing wrong with giving your studio the benefit of the doubt and letting them explore a new venture. As a matter of fact, not to get into a Sony versus Microsoft debate here, but that is one of the main reasons why Sony's first-party studios are more successful at the moment than Microsoft's, because Sony allows creative freedom to their developers. Playground's working on a Fable game is one of the first steps in the right direction for Microsoft, so kudos to them. With that out of the way, what can we actually expect from a Fable game? How will it look like? What engine will the game run on? How long has this been in development for? And when can we expect to see it? According to a few sources, the game's development started not too long ago, perhaps 6 or so months ago. So if anything, this game is in very early stages. It's also worth noting that Playground Games now has 2 teams at their studio, and the employee count went from 2-digit numbers into 3-digit numbers, which basically means they're in the hundreds. Team A is developing a Forza Horizon 4 game, and new Team B is working on the Fable reboot project. Fable is perhaps another launch title for the new system sometime in 2020, or maybe even later. It's very hard to predict or even give an educational guess, because there's so little information out there, other than the fact that it is in development and that it started about a half a year ago. So, I personally have many questions for this game, and I will do my best to keep track of all things being Fable from this day on. Fable was a childhood memory for me. I was very obsessed with this game, and to see it to make a return in its full-fledged form on a next-gen console or cross-gen is a dream come true. I cannot wait to see it for myself, and I will keep everyone up to date. Now, before we go and talk about our next game, there is one video clip I'd like to show you that many people have mistaken Fable for. As you guys can see here, many believed that this was actual leaked footage of the new Fable game, and that is not the case here at all. This is simply an Unreal Engine 4 demo environment that was made by a 3D environment artist who was simply practicing his 3D art and showcasing his awesome work. But the reason why I wanted to show this is because if I was to see a Fable game anytime soon, I would honestly expect it to look like this or even better. This is arguably the most beautiful looking foliage and environment I have ever seen in an engine. For the record, Fable Legends did run on this engine, but it did not look anywhere near as good, and it was also not very well optimized when I played it in the past E3s, before the game got canned, and before Lionhead was thrown off the bridge. So when we will go back to Albion, and when we will hear about it for the first time, that all depends on how desperate Microsoft is when it comes to announcing their games in development. Right now they're not doing too hot. Sea of Thieves and State of Decay 2 are critical failures, but are commercial successes when it comes to the actual sales. So it's rough to say. If you ask for my opinion, a small CG trailer at E3 2018 would not hurt. But honestly, I would not expect to hear anything in regards to Fable, perhaps maybe until Gamescom, which is in August of this year, or E3 2019 at the latest. So with that out of the way, I did talk to a friend of mine who goes by the name of Master Chief. Let's see what he has to say. After chilling for a little bit with the Master Chief in space and kicking some grunts to the face and shooting some elites, here is our battle report on what's going on in the amazing universe of the Halo franchise. So what's happening with Halo currently? Well, for one, the Master Chief Collection is being reworked quite a bit for the Xbox One X, and it seems that 343 Industries is really trying to deliver the experience they initially intended to deliver back in 2014, with a new matchmaking system and the ability to choose what portion of the games to install, and many other improvements and quality of life additions. It's not a secret that Microsoft's next Halo game will also be running at 60 frame rates and going to PC as well. As a matter of fact, it's been confirmed multiple times already by the studio and Phil Spencer himself. Oh, and the next Halo game will also have split screen according to Bonnie Ross, the head of 343 Industries. Will the next Halo game be Halo 6 or something else like a spin-off? No, there is no spin-off Halo games that are currently in development as far as I know, and plus we just recently got Halo Wars 2 in 2017, which is a spin-off game already. The next game in the Halo series will be Halo 6, but it will not be titled Halo 6. The name is going to be different according to what I'm being told. Apparently later this year, Xbox Live players will be able to beta test a brand new giant Warzone multiplayer mode. Sources say that it's either some sort of a standalone multiplayer thing for Halo, or part of a multiplayer from the next game itself, similar to how Halo 5 Guardians beta started in December of 2014, and the game later being released in October of 2015. Halo 6 is going to be the big baddie game for Xbox coming in holiday 2019. The new Warzone mode will be much larger in scale, have a much higher player count, and there's a chance that this is the Halo's version of Battle Royale. It won't necessarily play like a Battle Royale game in terms of random weapons or survival elements, but more of its own unique thing with its own twists, gameplay elements, and of course vehicle warfare galore. As far as any announcements go for Halo at E3 this year, yes, Master Chief agrees and says 100% there will be some sort of Halo announcements this year. Most likely for the update to Master Chief Collection for Xbox One X, along with a trailer for the next Halo game, and the beta multiplayer announcement for later this year. So, that is what's happening currently in the Halo universe, and you guys should be very excited coming up in here 2 weeks at E3. So with that being said, what we're going to do now is we're going to backtrack a little bit. We're going to talk about Crackdown 3. We're going to talk about the new mech game that's in development right now by an unknown studio. And we're going to talk about Forza Horizon 4 and Forza Motorsport 8. And that's pretty much it. And then we're going to call it. With that being said, we're going to move on. With the big questions and games out of the way, let's quickly talk about Forza Horizon 4, Forza Motorsport 8, the unknown mech game, Crackdown 3, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and the recent hiring of Daryl Gallagher, who I will talk about a little bit at the end. So basically, it's very safe to say that Forza Horizon 4 will be coming out later this year, sometime in September, to follow the usual early fall release every other year with the Forza games. The last Forza Horizon game came out in 2016, and 2017 was the year of Forza Motorsport 7. I'm hearing conflicting reports that Forza Horizon 4 will either take place in Japan or United Kingdom, but right now the sources are leaning towards a United Kingdom location more than Japan. There will be an announcement at E3, so sit tight and just expect it. Forza Motorsport 8 is not a real surprise and expected to be out fall of next year. Will follow the usual tradition of being announced at E3 2019, along with the release date as always. No details on the actual game, but it does exist, so just expect it. Crackdown 3 will have a huge showing at E3 this year. We'll have a final release date along with a 4-player, fully 100% destructible environments in the multiplayer. Also, the sources say that if you pre-order Crackdown 3, you will be granted access to the Halo multiplayer beta that will be happening later this year. However, this is not 100% yet. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is progressing well and looks like a painting, and it's a beautiful game. It will have a presence at E3 with a release date announcement that's most likely be happening either holiday 2018 or spring 2019 are the two current possible targeting dates that I'm hearing of. Crackdown 3 will come first before Ori and the Will of the Wisps. The game will also most likely be a Game Pass surprise announcement that will either be available sometime this summer or early fall. So what's up with the mech game? Well, a lot of people here at Microsoft love mechs, and we all know they own rights to Mech Assault. There are two possible mech games that might be happening. It's either the reboot of Armored Core from Software that was confirmed multiple times to be in development by Miyazaki himself, or it's a Mech Assault game that's owned by Microsoft. Now, I know what you're going to say. Microsoft and Japan don't really mix well, and that's true. But that doesn't mean, if you look at the history of From Software, they actually did develop a game back in the day called Otogi on the original Xbox, which was actually quite well received. And Dark Souls 3 did debut for the first time at E3 2015, so there might be something going on with that as well, but we do not know yet. If I was a betting man though, it's most likely a new Mech Assault game. Also, speaking of marketing, let's go down a quick list of the third-party games that's going to be marketed by Xbox this year at E3 in the next 2 weeks. Anthem is an obvious one because it debuted at a Microsoft conference last year. CD Projekt's next game, Cyberpunk 2077 as well, because Witcher 3 was always marketed as an Xbox game in the past, and it's the perfect game to showcase on Xbox One X along with Anthem. Both games are super fucking powerhouses. The Metro series is no stranger to the Xbox marketing in the past, and Metro Exodus is no exception. And as we saw recently, Battlefield 5 will also be marketed by Xbox. Splinter Cell will make an appearance, and the chances are pretty high there will also have some sort of exclusivity stuff going on as well, considering the fact that Splinter Cell was always seen as an Xbox franchise since the beginning of its birth back in the original Xbox days. There might be some other surprises as well, such as Shadows Die Twice, which is being developed by From Software, and I've been hearing rumblings of that it will make its first debut at the Xbox press event, similar to how Dark Souls 3 was handled back in E3 2015. Shadow Die Twice is confirmed as a new horror survival IP for multiple platform releases, according to the sources. Okay, with the third-party stuff out of the way, I wanted to speak real quick about the potential new studio that's being put up by Microsoft in Southern California and being run by Daryl Gallagher. Who's Daryl, you might be asking? He's a former 10-year boss on Tomb Raider from Crystal Dynamics, who's now joining at Microsoft for a new AAA studio. Lead position. Yes, you heard that right. Quadruple A studio, as opposed to the usual AAA studio. At first it was believed that it was a simple typo at a job posting, but it was later confirmed by Microsoft that they literally did mean AAA quality studio. What does that mean for today's standard? $599 US. Just kidding. In all seriousness now, I have no clue what a quadruple studio is capable of or what it even means. Alrighty guys, that was a shit ton of stuff to absorb, but basically in a nutshell, Microsoft is cooking up some sweet stuff. Assuming most of these things turn out the way they're supposed to, it's safe to say that the giant publisher will finally have a good turnaround as far as games go. Microsoft needs to get on those titles as soon as possible, and I'm very hopeful that this year's E3 is where they will start making things right for the games. They have an amazing piece of hardware, they have an amazing online social service, and now they need the amazing games. This lineup is looking up quite beastly. See you at E3 2018 Xbox Media Briefing. Stay tuned to Gaming Instincts TV for the latest E3 updates, game news, guides, and much more. Let us know your thoughts, and let's have a conversation in the comment section below. See you soon, guys!